Good morning. For this session, we want to talk about Windows 10 subscription activation. Kamal and I, over the next 45 minutes, will give you an overview of this new capability that we've added with Windows 10 1703 and talk about kind of the scenarios that you want to use this for. So from an agenda perspective, we want to make sure by the end of this you understand what Windows 10 subscription activation is and that you've seen it in action. So we certainly want to show you this to be able to see how a Windows 10 Pro device can automatically become Windows 10 Enterprise with just the user signing into the device. So that's the easiest scenario. For us to get this far, we've done quite a bit of work, because if we go back in time to Windows 7, if you think about how you moved from Windows Pro to Windows Enterprise at that point in time, it was pretty much a wipe and reload. So no big surprise, no one did that. Organizations would immediately re-image the devices with Windows 10 Enterprise because you didn't have a choice. As we move forward to Windows 8.1, we simplified that a little bit so that you could do an in-place upgrade. You could have a Windows 8.1 Pro install, insert the Windows 10 media, and run an upgrade to Windows 10 Enterprise. Very few people ever did that because it took a while. It was easier to just wipe and load. So we still had more work to do. In Windows 10, we started to make some real progress on making that a whole lot faster. With Windows 10 1507, we could do that using a provisioning package, using MDM, basically by injecting a new product key and rebooting, because there were new components that needed to be installed, new features that needed to be enabled, and that would happen on a reboot. With Windows 10 1607, we changed that so now it just required a new product key. You could inject a new product key and it would become the new SKU immediately. So you could go from Pro to Enterprise with no effort at all. It was instantaneous. And not that we focused a whole lot on it, you could go back. So you could put in a Windows 10 Pro product key and change the machine from Enterprise back to Pro, again, without rebooting. So it made it really trivial to go back and forth between Pro and Enterprise, to the point where if you, for some reason, had a Pro and Enterprise, two different images, you really didn't need that anymore. You could deploy a Pro image and apply then an Enterprise product key, and presto, you now have an Enterprise install. The way that works behind the scenes is we basically have an operating system that contains all the components of Pro and Enterprise. It's just a question of which ones are enabled. The product key is used to enable the necessary features on that operating system. So the next logical step is, now that we have this ability to switch back and forth pretty easily, how do we make that automatic? And that's what we wanted to work on with Windows 10 1703 and Windows 10 subscription activation, to be able to leverage Azure Active Directory and license assignment the same way that you would do Office 365 and EMS. Which takes us into kind of the evolution from the activation side. There hasn't been a whole lot. If we look back to Windows 7, most people were using KMS. Yeah, we did have Active Directory-based activation, and we do have Mac-based activation for machines that don't necessarily have a consistent connection back to the corporate network. But we haven't really made a whole lot of changes since then. We did introduce one thing in Windows 10 1607, focused on the cloud solution provider market. Cloud solution providers generally provide services to small and medium-sized businesses. So with those CSP capabilities, we enabled customers to be able to purchase a month-by-month subscription to Windows 10 Enterprise. It works exactly the same way as what we talked about before. You can just sign into the device and have it automatically step up from Pro to Enterprise. So now the big change is for Windows 10 1703, we're expanding that to all customers using Windows 10 Enterprise. For those that have enterprise agreements for Windows 10 Enterprise E3 or E5, or the equivalent MPSA agreements. So with that, we make it nice and simple. So when we look at this conceptually, we have these traditional on-premises components, which are still around and can still be used. There's nothing that will require you to switch away from KMS or Mac or AD-based activation anytime soon. You can keep using those. But we wanted to enable subscription activation with a much more modern approach so that you don't really need to worry about keys, you don't need to do reboots, you don't need to have any infrastructure at all to do this. If we look at this from a kind of a role-playing perspective, we can have the IT administrator provide this capability to the end user, to Anna, so that we can enable this particular scenario. The process that we go through is to basically go through the autopilot flow. If those of you who have attended an autopilot session know the basic process that you go through to set up a new device. The idea is that the person can get a new device and set it up themselves. So this is kind of complementary to that. It's not dependent on that, so don't think that you only can use this with autopilot. It can be used in any scenario, but it's needed to support that where you would typically buy a machine that comes pre-installed with Windows 10 Pro and you don't want to re-image it. If you don't re-image it, well, then you need a way to easily get from Pro to Enterprise, and we can enable that with the new PC. So it comes with Windows 10 Pro. It can, with the help of the IT person, get there. In order to do that, you need to have a license assigned to the user. So we will show you in a minute how we get those licenses available in Azure Active Directory. But as the IT administrator, you can go in, assign a license to the user. Once that license is available, as soon as the user logs into that device, it steps up. We do have two types of licenses available, Windows 10 Enterprise E3 and E5. These are per user licenses, so they would get assigned to the user who's going to be signing in. If we look at the benefits of this, we can start to see some simplifications and some advantages of doing it this way. On a license management perspective, you don't need to worry about keys. We don't need to worry about Mac key activations. We don't need to set up KMS servers. We just leverage Azure Active Directory. This doesn't mean just Azure Active Directory joined devices. This also works with hybrid devices, so you can have synchronization between AD and AAD and sign in with an Active Directory account, and this will work as well. So that's fine. But Azure Active Directory is then providing the license management capabilities, so no infrastructure. From a compliance perspective, there's nothing required to keep track of how many of these licenses you're using, because you get the licenses in Azure AD, you assign it to a number of users. How many licenses are you using? Just count up the number of users that have licenses assigned. So very easy to do. We don't have to worry about having a connection to the corporate network. KMS requires a connection to the corporate network. This doesn't. This does require an occasional connection to the internet to validate that there's still a license available, but other than that, it takes care of that. That then enables a whole bunch of mobility scenarios so that we can have devices that roam around on the internet, maybe never making a VPN connection back to the corporate network. From a step-up perspective, certainly no IT involvement required. You don't need to touch the machine at all. As soon as someone signs into that machine, it will become enterprise. If we look at this from a Windows 10 subscription activation perspective, the main two areas that we want to focus on are the license management and compliance pieces. Making sure you understand what you need to go through to get to that point. So let's talk about prerequisites then. This does require Windows 10 Creators Update, Windows 10 1703. It does need Azure Active Directory, so you need to have an Azure Active Directory tenant. Since most of you have Active Directory tenants or Active Directory domains already in place, you want to set up synchronization between Active Directory and this Azure Active Directory tenant. which we call hybrid Azure Active Directory join. There are instructions on how to set that up. It's pretty simple. You download the AAD Connect tool, set up synchronization between the two, and you're set to go. You then need a Windows 10 Pro 1703 device. As soon as that Windows 10 Pro device connects to the cloud, sees that there's a license available, it will step up. That obviously requires periodic internet access because we need to talk to Azure Active Directory to confirm that there's a license available. So if you've got a machine that sits off of the internet altogether for an extended period of time, obviously you're going to look at KMS or Mac or something like that instead. So this is really for the internet connected client. If by chance you have a machine that steps up from Pro to Enterprise and it can't access the internet for an extended period of time, it's going to step back down to Pro because it's going to say, well, I can't validate anymore that there is a license available, so I'm assuming that there isn't, and we'll step back down to Pro. Now, from a functionality perspective, the Windows 10 Enterprise features are enabled when you step up. When you step back down, the features aren't immediately turned off. They're still active. They just can't be configured anymore except to turn them off. So it's not like they're suddenly going to see a loss of functionality. You're just going to either want to resolve that situation and get them back to Enterprise with a valid license, or turn off those Enterprise features that you don't want to use anymore. From a user perspective, once you've got those prerequisites in place, you have all of your users defined in Azure Active Directory, synchronized from your on-prem Active Directory environment. The next step is to assign licenses to those users. Azure Active Directory provides a variety of ways of doing that. You can manually assign a license to every user, which is kind of tedious. You can use Azure Active Directory Premium, which has a feature that enables you to assign licenses to groups. So you can create a group of all your users and assign a license to that group. Or you can script this using PowerShell. You can run a PowerShell command that assigns a license to every user. Exactly the same as what you would do with Office 365 or EMS or Azure Active Directory Premium or any other Azure AD-based license. So if you're already good with managing those Office 365 licenses, well, you already know how to deal with the Windows 10 licenses as well. Now, that does require a little bit of work depending on the type of subscription that you have. If you have a cloud solution provider subscription, you're probably not in this room because this is mostly SMBs, small businesses working with a partner, buying those licenses through that partner. Most of you are probably in the other two buckets. In fact, most of you are probably in the last one with an enterprise agreement. Those enterprise agreements include Windows 10 Enterprise and E3 and E5 subscriptions. Those are what you would need for there. A few of you may have Microsoft Product and Services Agreements, MPSA, which is kind of a modernization of the enterprise agreement concept. It's something that we expect to grow over time, but for the most part today, most people have enterprise agreements in place. So as long as you have one of those in place, you're in good shape. You do need to have per user licenses in your enterprise agreement or in MPSA. I think MPSA is actually per user only, but this doesn't work for per device licenses. This works for per user, but generally it's pretty easy to convert from per device licensing over to per user licensing so that you can then assign these licenses per user. So let me turn it over to Kamal to kind of explain more behind the scenes how this works.
All right. So with that background in mind, let's look at what is the process of acquiring these Windows 10 subscriptions in enterprise agreement and getting those licenses onto AAD. I think the best place to start would be our documentation on subscriptions activation. And team has done a great job of putting this together. It not only goes into the technical details, but also covers the process for all the programs that Michael talked about, which is CSP, MPSA, and enterprise agreement. An enterprise agreement is going to be the focus for the next 15 to 20 minutes when we walk through in detail as to what is required. Now, if you are an existing Office 365 customer, process becomes even simpler. But before we get there, you have to do a little bit of work with the help of your reseller. Now, one of our goals is to get more and more customers onto these modern cloud deployment services that make it simple to deploy your Windows 10 licenses. For that, what we have introduced is these $0 add-on licenses, depending on what Windows license you currently have. If you have Windows 10 E3, you will order the add-on license for E3. If you have Windows 10 E5, you'll order the add-on license for E5. Now again, these are no-cost transactions for you, but something you'll have to work with your reseller with the help of Microsoft account team. And what this transaction does is it kickstarts the process of getting Windows 10 subscription licenses onto your AAD tenant. As I said, if you are an existing Office 365 customer, the process is even simpler. So if you have Office 365 subscription, you likely already have a tenant. So what we'll try to do is, when we get this $0 order, is we'll try to discover your existing tenant. And when we discover your existing tenant, we'll go ahead and provision your Windows subscription licenses onto the same tenant. And post that discovery, we'll send you this welcome email. And the purpose of this welcome email is to indicate that, hey, we were able to discover your tenant, we were able to provision your Windows 10 licenses. You can now go and start managing those licenses and start assigning these to individual users. Now, if you don't have an Office 365 subscription, or if you don't have any other AED-based subscription from Microsoft, we'll first try to help you create an account. And for that, we'll send you something called as tenant discovery email. And with that tenant discovery email, you will have all the instructions that are required to set up your account, set up your tenant. And there are two options in that email. One is sign in and sign up. Sign in is typically for customers who have some trial subscription, and they want to preserve the settings of that trial subscription when moving on to Windows subscription or Office subscription. The process works exactly how it works for O365. But if you don't have any trial, or this is your first attempt in setting up a tenant, you'll typically go and click on sign up option. And when you click on sign up, you'll have an option to create your tenant, and from there, you will again get a provisioning email letting you know that, hey, we have again provisioned your Windows subscriptions onto your tenant. Once these services are provisioned, you can then go into the Office 365 Admin Center and manage your both Windows subscriptions and Office subscriptions. Now, there are alternate ways as well. If you are more familiar with Azure portal, you can manage your Windows subscriptions and Office subscriptions on the Azure portal as well. So in short, this is really the end-to-end process that you need to go through to get your Windows subscription licenses if you already have an enterprise agreement and if you already have E3 and E5 licenses. So you can actually, I mean, if you just want to do it for trial purposes, you can go and order a few of these $0 add-on licenses and get the process started. Try this out before you want to take your entire customer base or your entire user base onto these subscription licenses. So let's imagine that you went and did all that process, you ordered your licenses, and your licenses have been provisioned on your AAD tenant. Now, as Michael mentioned, this is a per user license. So before your users can take advantage of Windows subscriptions, they need to have an assigned license in AAD. So in the next demo, I want to walk you through the process of assigning that license in AAD. So again, there are multiple ways to do that. I typically go to office.com and click on sign in. When I click on sign in, I'll be asked to enter my username and my password. Remember, these are the admin credentials. So these are the admin's username and admin's password. Now, as soon as I hit sign in, I'm going to be on the screen which is the default experience. So if I have not assigned any of the Office licenses, or if I have not assigned any of the Office products, I get to this screen. I'm going to ignore all that and click on Admin. So when I click on Admin, I'll reach to this page, what we call as Admin homepage. Now again, sorry. Okay, we're going to restart this. Okay, so once you reach on the admin homepage, what you're going to see is, again, multiple different options on that admin homepage. Some of those are, installing Windows licenses, installing Office licenses, or if you want to know about security messages, this is your homepage on the admin portal. I'm going to ignore all that and focus on the task at hand, which is really adding users. So I'll go click on Add a User, and from there, I'll have to enter some details about my user, like first name, last name, display name, and the username. So I'll do all that, and there are some other advanced options available as well. If you want to, let's say, add their contact information, you could have expanded on contact information. But the last step on this screen is assigning licenses. Now, for this particular AAD tenant, the only license I have is Windows 10 E3. So the admin portal will automatically select that license for me and assign the license to the user that I just created. Now, if I had more licenses, they would also show up again at the same place. You do have an option of creating or adding a user without assigning them a license, and coming back later onto the admin portal and assigning a license as well. So that option is also available. So I'll again add the license and click on Add. Now the final step while adding a user is actually emailing them the password. Now this is the password that system automatically generated for you. You also have an option of choosing a stronger password or giving them a password of your choice. So I'm going to go send them an email, and really that's all it took for me to add a new user and assign them a license. Now, as most of you in the room are enterprise customers, and you probably have thousands of customers in your organization, right? Now, we don't expect you to go through that process of adding a user individually to add all your users. So we do support all the bulk options that are available in Office 365. Like if you have decent amount of users, maybe 500, 1,000, whatnot, you could always use a spreadsheet and upload all those users using a spreadsheet. Or if you're more familiar with Windows PowerShell commandlets, you can use the PowerShell option. The third option for customers who have on-premises Active Directory and they want to now move to AAD, they can actually sync those AD users to AAD using AD Connect. So all these options are also available for bulk assignment. So once you have assigned licenses to users, from the admin side, your work is pretty much done. From the end user perspective, there are a couple of things. The first thing is really joining user's device to Azure AD. Now, from the user perspective, they don't really need to think about AD. They don't need to think about Intune, MDM, and whatnot. From their perspective, they're just going about doing their job, that is, signing into a device. So I'll now walk you through an example of how a user can sign into a device when they get their new machine. And most people, when they're joining their devices to AD, they're going to do that at the time of setting up a new device. Now, there's also a way to add a new device post-sign-up or post-UBI experience, but most people are going to do it at the time of setting up a new device. So here is one such example. Here is Anna. She gets a new machine from her admin, from her manager, and she powers it up. Again, thanks to Autopilot, she has to just make few selections, like select a region, select a language, and she does all that, and as soon as her device comes online, as soon as a device connects to the internet, we understand that this particular device belongs to Anna's organization. So what we will do here is give Anna a personalized experience which is branded for her organization. So in this case, this is our fictional company, Contoso, what you saw. Now from there, all Anna has to do is enter her login name and password, and just with that, her device is ready for her. Now this device is not just enterprise ready, but this device also is productive. You'll see in a moment that due to power of Intune, we can also bring in all the business applications that are required for Anna to be productive. Okay. Cool. So yeah, so as I said, most people, when they're joining their devices to AAD, will do this at the time of a setup. Now, we also have an option of doing it post the setup. Now, in this case, this is my device. I bought it for my personal use, but I love it so much that I want to use it at work as well. But before I can use it for work, my admin requires me to join this device to AAD so that my company can start managing it for security policies or any other policies they deem is important to keep our company secured. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on Start. When I click on Start and hit Settings, I'll have an option of joining this device to AAD. So I click on Accounts, and as you can see, this is my personal device. I click on Access, Work, or School. Now let's spend a few minutes on this slide, because I think it's important to understand what these options are. So when I hit Connect, I'm given multiple different options to join my device to AAD to access company resources. The first option that we see is set up a work or school account. Now, this particular option is not supported for subscription activation. And the reason being that when user is choosing this option, we're assuming that it's a personal device. They're OK with giving up some control to be able to access companies' resources like single sign-on to the applications, but they don't want to give full control over the device, and they don't want their admin to start managing it actively. So this is not the one that we will pick. The second option, which is join the device to Azure Active Directory, is the one which enables the subscription activation. Now, the third one is used for scenarios where, again, you first connect your device to your Active Directory to have access to your on-premises resources, and then replicate that AD identity onto AAD using AAD Connect. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Join this device to Azure Active Directory. Now, when I do that, I'll have to again log in with the username that my admin gave me. So I'll go ahead and sign in, and then hit Next. OK. So as I hit Next, I'll have an option of entering my password. So when I enter my password and hit Sign in, my device will be connected to my company's AAD tenant. Now, I'm still given one last chance to change up my mind. If I don't want this device to be connected, I could say cancel here. I can sort of move back to managing it using my own personal credentials. But I'm going to go and hit Join, and you'll see in a moment this device will be connected to my company's AAD tenant. And once I'm done, I'll also be able to see this show up on this portal which says your device is connected. So this is all is required if you didn't connect your device to AAD at the time of initial setup. You can come and do that post-UBI experience as well. OK. So next, what we want to look at is, again, at the risk of repeating myself, just want to call out one more time that subscription activation works with AAD, but it also works with your on-premises Active Directory joined devices just by using the AD Connect sync. OK. Now, let's for a moment go back to our Anna's example where she got a new device and she powered it up and the device was up and running in no time. So at this moment, the admin has not assigned her an enterprise subscription. She is still on Pro. So what she will see is, as soon as the device, in this case, so this is one such device where there is no E3 assignment. So you'll see when I log in, I'm still logging in with my own credentials. And if I go and look at the activation, I am on Pro. So again, admin has not yet done anything on this device. This is still a Pro device. Now, let's see how easy it is to take this device from Pro to Enterprise. All right, so what really we saw up until now was the setup, right? I mean, those are the tasks that you would have learned about as part of the admin experience, as part of autopilot and whatnot. Now, subscription activation comes into play when the user has been assigned an E3 license. So this is an example where my user went and my admin went and assigned me an E3 license. So again, I log into my machine just like I would do every single day. There is really no change in my behavior as a user. The only difference is that my admin now has assigned me a license in the background. So I log into my device, and you can look into the accounts. It's still the same user that admin had created as part of the admin experience. Now, what happens when I go and look into my activation settings? So if I go to activation and look at the state of my device, you will see that my device has been automatically moved from Pro to Enterprise. Now again, there was no rebooting, there was no reimaging, I didn't even push a button. All I did was just went about doing my job, and I moved to Pro to Enterprise. Now imagine what will it take you to do the same thing using the methods that are available today. One thing, you'll have to set up your on-premises infrastructure to have that KMS activation and point this device to that KMS server so that it can get the right license and take it to the enterprise. So that's really what we're trying to get to with the power of autopilot, with the power of subscription activation, is to get into this self-service model where an admin can just hand over a device to a user, and user can automatically move to the right state, which is enterprise ready, which is productive, without too much of this involvement from each party to get to that state. Now, one last thing before we get to the next slide is really how can you take your user from enterprise back to Pro. Okay. Now, in the background, what our service is doing is every time user logs into a device, our service is going and checking, hey, what rights does this user have? Now, if the user has the E3 license, it will keep the device on E3. But if for some reason you have taken the E3 subscription from the user, or you have assigned it to any other user, we can also bring the device back to Pro just at the time of logging. So this is one such example. Few months down the line, my admin took away my E3 rights. He gave that subscription to some other user. So again, I log into my device. Nothing really has changed from my side, right? I'm just a normal user logging into a device just like I would do every single day. So you'll see under the accounts, it's still the same user, so nothing really changed from my perspective. Now when I go back and look into my activation settings and look at the state of my machine, you'll see that it has automatically been brought down from enterprise back to Pro. And I think this is also huge, especially for the IT professionals who are managing the compliance for their company as well. Now, if for some reason you don't have E3 licenses anymore, you don't really have to worry about going into each of those single machines and getting them off of enterprise. Our service automatically checks and makes sure that you are always compliant with the licensing that you have bought. So if you have bought E3, E5, you will stay there. If you have not bought, if you have not renewed your licenses, we'll bring it back to Pro. So the compliance from being your responsibility now becomes our responsibility. So when you use enterprise subscription, you can be rest assured that you are in the compliance state just by the virtue of assigning or not assigning licenses to individual users. Okay, now we have had subscription activation for a little while, and a lot of you have been using it, and we've been getting some good feedback as part of that engagement. Now, there are two scenarios that we're working on that has come out of that feedback. The first is support for education subscriptions. Now, one of the uniqueness with the education space is our education customers are mixed. Some education customers are on Windows 10 Enterprise Edition, and some education customers are on Windows 10 Education Edition. So we want to be able to continue to give them that choice that we have given. So there's a bit more work that is needed to be done for the education subscriptions. So education subscriptions, we are expecting to bring them to you guys somewhere in summer 2008, hopefully before you go through this big back-to-school deployment cycle. The other piece that has also come from the feedback is users are used to spinning up virtual machines from their physical host. Now, in the existing on-premises KMS infrastructure, you can point those virtual machines to your KMS servers and get those activated. Now, this is the gap that we have realized that we have not yet solved with the subscription activation. Because in the subscription activation, the virtual machine is not inheriting the state of the activation from the physical host. So one of the things that we're working on is to, if you're spinning up virtual machines, and you may be logging into that virtual machine using your AAD credentials or using your local account credentials, as long as your host machine is activated with Pro or Enterprise, we will make sure that the virtual machine is also activated with the same state. So I think that's all we had. We can open it up for, we have 7 more minutes. We can open it up for Q&A and answer as many questions as we can. There are mics in the room. Please, if you have questions, come to one of these mics and we'll be happy to take your questions.
What you have not mentioned is the need that have the OEM key in the BIOS. Is it still valid also in the future?
Yeah, so one of the ways for us to understand, if you have a Pro entitlement for existing machine is to looking at if there is a Pro key in the BIOS. And I think all the OEMs starting from Windows 8.1 and above have been having this Pro key in the BIOS. Now, if you activated your Pro through some other means, like let's say you bought a retail key and through that retail key you got a Pro entitlement, that is also good enough. All we're trying to make sure is that's a genuine copy of Pro that we're taking to Enterprise.
Yeah, and we are assuming that the operating system, the original Windows 10 Pro operating system, is already activated, and all we had to take care of in this case is stepping it up from Pro to Enterprise. So it's all about activating the subscription, not really activating the underlying operating system.
And it's because it's one of my actual issues currently. We have machines, Windows 7, 8, we bring them up onto Windows 10, and then they have an active subscription, but they are not activated. So what you're doing is not an activation, it's only
a subscription activation, right.
And so how do I then, with a pure cloud client, how do I then the activation? So I take a box with the OBE, user logs on, Azure AD enrollment, and how does then the activation will work for a pure cloud client?
Yeah, I mean, for new devices, which are purchased with the Windows 10 Pro license, no issue. For older devices...
Yeah, but this existing version is never activated.
Right. For older devices that weren't shipped with Windows 10 Pro, the embedded license is going to be for Windows 7 or 8.1. And that particular product key isn't sufficient to activate Windows 10 Pro. So that is a challenge in that scenario, that you would need to be activating that underlying Windows 10 Pro install for using some key or using a digital entitlement. So if you took advantage of the free upgrade program to get from Windows 7 or 8.1 to Windows 10, then Windows 10 Pro is activated with a digital entitlement and you're all set. If you just deploy a Windows 10 Pro VL license to the machine, you could activate that using KMS and step it up, but it kind of defeats the purpose at that point. So certainly for older machines, Windows 7 and 8.1 with keys embedded in the firmware, that's going to be a little restricted. Windows 10 devices, new devices out of the box, this is ideal.
Okay, thanks.
Activation-wise, is it the same duration as KMS? So 6 months and then requiring machine connectivity?
Yeah, as Kamal mentioned, it's validating every login to make sure that there is a license available. It needs to do a validation at least once every
Once every month is what
once every 30 days.
Yeah, so if you let's say you logged onto your machine and we validated that you are on E3, we are not going to check it for next 30 days. But if you have not logged in for, let's say, if you don't log in for the next 31st day, and if you don't find a license, we may bring it back to Pro. And as soon as we're able to validate that, yes, you have E3, then we'll take you back to Enterprise. So it's really, I think our validation, once we check, stays on the machine for around 30 days. And then we check it in the next 31st day and see what is the current state of the user's license on the AAD.
Yeah. And that's why we need the periodic internet connection to make sure that we can do that.
Is it the same check for Office, or is it a different type of activation check?
I am not sure of the Office, but that's a good point. I'll go validate it. But we want to make sure that we are sort of in alignment. But actually, sorry, I don't know the answer. I'll validate that.
Yeah, certainly in Office is making that check. I just don't know at what frequency.
Yeah, what frequency do they do? Yeah.
Hello, how are you guys?
Hello?
So you might have answered this question. So we get our desktops and laptops come in, they all come in with Pro, and we image them, load the apps and stuff, then give it to the user to log in. Would this then work if it's never been activated as Pro or never has been activated prior to that moment? Usually they'd log in, it hits the network and it gets a KMS key.
Is there, so they do have a Pro key in the BIOS in the sense that you bought these Pro machines from the OEMs. And so one of the things that we're actually working on is that, let's say for your scenario, you got the Pro machines, you imaged them onto Enterprise and you handed them over to your user. So I believe it's in the next release or so. Well, actually, if there is a valid Pro entitlement, that means you got the Pro through genuine means and whatnot, we'll go and activate the Pro as well. So because today the concept is, we look at what edition is the machine on, and then we go and activate that edition. Now in your scenario, the edition on the machine is perhaps Enterprise, right? Because that's what you gave to your users. We will also start doing to see, hey, yes, sure, the edition on the machine is Enterprise, but the user actually came from the Pro, so we'll go ahead and activate Pro as well. So that once this Enterprise subscription is over, you will still have the Pro machine which is activated.
Okay. Because how does that affect, I'm sorry, like a shared PC, like in a conference room with a PC, and then it's like, it could be 10 different people using it in one day. Is it the same process? Like, would a user hit a limit? Oh, you've already activated 10 machines or something like that?
So per user licensing, rules say that you can activate up to 5 machines. So if you are a user who has an E3 or E5 subscription, you can use that subscription to activate up to 5 devices. So it does. I mean, but if you're trying to activate all 10, it at some point will say, you know what, you don't have enough licenses.
Okay. Because with Office, you have a shared key you can configure.
That's a good. Yes,
you don't have that with this, right?
We don't have that yet. But this was the scenario that someone brought up just before this session. So I'll go and look into see, how is Office enabling that and how is Office enabling the scenario where they can activate the shared device. So,
Yeah,
but
'cause
this
I guess
is,
for us, this wouldn't work then because we might have, one person might log into, in a period of month, 3 or 4 different conference rooms.
okay,
And those conference room machines may even be imaged twice during the month. So then it would be reactivating. So they just would then time out the way it is right now.
sure.
Right? I mean, not time out, but hit the limit.
Sure. No, that's a good feedback that we need to take back and figure out how we can support those scenarios as well.
Yeah, that's
On
a
the-
challenge for us even with Office too, because these shared devices, because of the way we work, the people don't want to use their laptops for a presentation because they want to show one thing, kind of work in another, and then they have the laptop because they're presenting like 3D imagery. So it's like a CAD level workstation or graphic workstation in the conference room.
Yeah, related to your first question too, we also documented on the TechNet documentation process to basically extract the firmware key, the Windows 10 Pro firmware key, and apply it to the operating system. So assume you took a Windows 10 enterprise image and you deployed it to a machine, it's not going to activate because the key on the machine is Pro. But you can run a simple batch file to extract the key and inject it into Windows 10 Enterprise. It steps down to Pro, and then the user signs in and it steps back up to Enterprise. So it's a workaround for the scenario in the short term, but longer term we want to automate that so it just
I guess
happens.
for initial, you can mix it, right? So we'd have to go to our reseller, Softmart, and say, change our subscription to support, we'll change our E3 and E5 to support subscriptions, right? But you don't have to
Right.
do all of them, so if you wanted, say, like 50 for conference rooms, you could just leave 50 and just have a KMS key still?
You could certainly deploy Windows 10 Enterprise to your conference room PCs, activate them with KMS, and then
And then have users
not
on
use subscriptions for those.
Yeah. So this $0 SKU is an add-on. So you'll still continue to order what you have been ordering with your reseller to get E3 and E5. On top of it, and this is the case for enterprise agreement customers, on top of it, if you want subscription activation, you'll then also ask a reseller to make a purchase of this $0 add-on licenses. And again, for that, the quantity is up to your per user E3, E5 licenses. You can start with a low quantity, sort of try it out for a few users, and then move it to all.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So if I have an existing environment of Windows 10 Enterprise or Pro machines already signed into a local Active Directory, and I want to move to this subscription-based model, I have to sign into Azure Active Directory to leverage this solution. But does that break the trust between those client machines and local Active Directory?
Well, it's important to understand that hybrid way of operating. So you would have devices joined to Active Directory, users signing in with Active Directory accounts, but those accounts and devices are synchronized with Azure AD, so that Windows is aware that that Active Directory account is also this Azure Active Directory account. And it's that Azure Active Directory account that has the license associated with it. So you don't really need to change anything, you just need to make sure you have that synchronization set up.
We do have that synchronization set up in our environment currently, but my understanding from other sessions was that a machine can only be joined to either Azure Active Directory or local Active Directory at a time.
While that's true, that hybrid scenario effectively gives you the best of both worlds. You have a device joined to Active Directory, but aware that it's part of Azure Active Directory. I mean, internally, we call that domain join plus plus because that's a hybrid scenario that is effectively joined to one, registered to the other, and functional.
So the
in
client
both.
machine, for all intents and purposes, would still show that it's joined to the local Active Directory domain?
It would, yes.
Great.
And there is a command line utility, and I always forget what it's called. It's like DS status or something like that. But you can ask the machine, what's your state? And it will say, I'm joined to Active Directory. I am registered with Azure Active Directory. Domain join plus plus is active. So it's aware that that's going on.
Thank you.
They're going to cut us off, so we'll
Okay.
take the rest of the
Yeah.
questions up front.